So this past week, I decided to quiet quit my job by relaxing some of the rules that we have in place because it makes me more comfortable and it's more conducive to me doing my best. And I thought I would summarize some rules that I've broken so far and some rules that I plan to break. And I hate to use the word break. I think it's more of a relaxing of attitude, and it's making me more in tune with the work and being able to do my best, or free up mental capacity to work is how I like to think of it. So I mentioned eating at the desk, and the reason I decided to eat at my desk is because oftentimes when I go into the office, I don't know how many hours I'm working. I love to do intermittent fasting, and I technically shouldn't be eating in front of the clients. I think it's a 7-hour day. I can handle a 20-hour fast. But then my boss says he wants me to do these other clients too. He has other training courses for me to look at. And before I know it, I'm pushing it, and I get to my car and I feel faint, and not a very pleasant situation. I had a time where I planned to fast for a Saturday and then go to my favorite Gertrude's restaurant in the Desert Botanical Garden. And then my boss kept asking me to stay for various clients. He probably thought he was doing me a favor, don't get me wrong. And so to ease up the possibility of that happening again, I allow myself to eat at the desk. I haven't run into trouble. If I run into trouble, I'll definitely talk to my boss to tell him, I try not to eat at the desk. This is what I ran into. I'm a recovering binge eater, and oftentimes not being allowed to eat at my desk forces me to overeat to compensate, and it hasn't been very good for my recovery, and that's what I plan to say. I actually had a friend who said I should use the word recovery because it affords a little bit more protection than if I just said I was on a diet or something, or doing intermittent fasting. Anyway, but it hasn't come up, and I don't think it will come up because the students are not unhappy about that. In fact, one of the students was a little bit worried for me because he thought he had saw me all day because he had two different classes and he came at two different times, and so that's good. Also, I want. My boss had a big problem with me showing up only 1-2 minutes ahead of time for my shift. And the reason I don't like to show up 5-10 minutes before the shift, which is what a lot of my colleagues do, is that I really dislike the water cooler kind of talk, what we did over the weekend, and some of my colleagues have kids, and every time I talk about that, I'm always worried I'm going to say something accidentally that isn't going to bode well. One time I accidentally, my student asked me if I ever been to Ukraine, and I said, well, I went somewhere that was formerly in Ukraine. And one of my colleagues took offense of that because he's from that area, and he says that, well, if it's not in Ukraine anymore, you don't say that's part of Ukraine, right? There's a reason those borders are where they are today, and he was very upset about that. And that's the kind of issue I run into. I had another problem where this was during a class. My colleague needed my help understanding this math. He had, English is his second language. He had a little difficulty reading the problem. It talked about a sandwich that was $10 and how much change something like that. But he misread just two of the words in there. And I looked at the problem. It was a former Math Counts problem, and it said a sandwich was $10, and it was in Math Counts 1996. So I said, well, that's an expensive sandwich. $10 then was like $60 now. And I pulled out the Shadow Stats calculator to show them, and it really was $60-some. And my coworker got very angry at that remark. He says it's people like me that are scaring the shit out of the markets, and that's why everything is going crazy these days. So water cooler talk tends to trip me up. I say things that I don't realize are not sensitive. And so I don't like to show up there early. The most terrifying thing that could happen is I show up. Oh, how was your weekend? I hope I don't screw it up. And so nowadays I usually just say, oh, it was good, and then I plug in my headphones and I go, I gotta take something. And sometimes I'll even pretend to call a friend. I have a very good friend here in Phoenix who has allowed me to use her as a phone call if I need to delay a question or something like that, and that's good. But those are the kind of things that can trip me up. So I've been trying to ghost my boss every time the subject of anything other than work comes up. I just try to give a 2-3 word answer. Oh my god, there's something I need to catch up on, even something work related, or maybe there's an email I have to answer from one of my colleagues. Whatever, to get away from that water cooler talk where I could accidentally step on a trap, right? So breaking eating rules at the office and ghosting my boss when he when the subject isn't work related are the two main ways I've been quiet quitting. Now going forward, I hope to also decorate my office area. I have posters that I love to decorate the place with obviously the bismuth art, and just feel at home there. That's long term. But if I can feel like I'm going to my favorite place, and I'm not restricted on how I can eat, and I can be myself. I don't have to answer to these water cooler issues. Oh my god, I'll do the best fucking job I ever did.